Welcome to DarrenDaily On Demand, your most trusted resource to help you become better every day. Today's episode is another special recap of this week's DarrenDaily Mentor Sessions. This dynamic recap was generated entirely by AI and features two hosts discussing the key principles and takeaways from the previous 5 Workday episodes of DarrenDaily. Now remember, if you aren't a member of the DarrenDaily community to receive every morning delivery of brand new episodes of DarrenDaily straight to your inbox, you can join over at DarrenDaily.com/join. Let's dive into the episode.
Ready for another deep dive? We're digging into a bunch of DarrenDaily episodes, all about communication and influence this time.
Lots to unpack there.
Right. But here's the thing we're going to focus on this time. It's not just about being the best speaker, It's about how to totally shine even when you're the one listening.
Interesting, because we all have more influence than we realize, even without saying a word.
Exactly. It's like we prep for that big presentation, but what about prepping to be an awesome audience member?
Right.
Turns out that's a superpower in and of itself. And the story of Alexandra Middlewood, that political science professor, totally proves it.
Oh, yeah, I remember her. Trying to teach a hybrid class, right?
Yeah.
In-person A&D on Zoom at the same time.
Yeah. Talk about a recipe for burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine talking to a screen full of muted faces day after day. It's enough to make anyone rethink their career choices, right?
Absolutely.
But then just one student on Zoom changes everything.
Oh, what'd they do? Give some brilliant answer.
Nope, nothing like that. This student was just totally engaged, nodding along, really tuned in. And that visual feedback, that silent connection, it totally re-energized her teaching.
It's amazing how powerful just being present can be, even through a screen. We have this deep human need for connection, and when we feel seen and heard, even without saying a word, it just changes the whole dynamic for the better.
It's like those 10 visual cues DarrenDaily talked about in How to Be an Awesome Audience Member.
Oh, right.
Smiling, making eye contact, nodding along, those little things we might not think much about can speak volumes.
It's true. And it's not just random. Those cues, they're rooted in psychology and how we communicate without even realizing it. Like, think about mirroring someone's energy for a second.
Okay.
Subconsciously, it tells the other person, I'm with you on the same wavelength. Builds rapport and trust instantly without a single word.
Wow. I never thought of it like that. It's like the secret communication hack we all have access to. So by being mindful of our body language and those cues, we can actually influence the speaker's energy and the whole tone of the conversation. So we've been talking about how being a good listener, like really being present, can be its own kind of influence, right?
Definitely.
But what about those times when you do need to make an impression, like you really want to stand out, like when you're talking to someone who could be a mentor or an investor, someone who could open some major doors for you?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, those high-stakes conversations need a totally different approach. It's not enough to just be present. You got to bring something more to the table. You have to show your value, right? That you get where they're coming from and how you can actually contribute to their world.
100%. You only get one shot at a first impression, especially with someone who's crazy successful.
Totally.
So how do we stand out? Not just be another face in the crowd, but really make them remember us.
Well, DarrenDaily had this really interesting tactic. He called them the 2 magic questions.
2 magic questions. Okay, you have to tell me more. That sounds kind of intense, like some secret code to get into a VIP party.
Huh. Well, maybe not that dramatic. But these 2 questions are super effective at the end of a conversation with someone like that, a VIP.
Okay, so what are they? Give me the secret.
So the first one, right, it's all about proving you were really listening and that you're all about taking action on what you talked about. Imagine this. You're wrapping up and you say, just to be sure I'm clear, the biggest takeaways for me were A, B, and C. Did I miss anything important?
It's so simple, but yeah, I can see how that would make an impact. You're not just nodding along, you were listening and processing.
Exactly. You're showing them their time and what they have to say matters to you. And here's the real magic, the second question.
Oh, okay, the second question. Lay it on me.
All right, so for this one, you want to show you're already thinking ahead strategically. You ask something like, of everything we talked about, what should I focus on right away? Like, what are the top 1 or 2 priorities and why those?
Wow, that's next level summarizing. You're not just repeating what they said. You're showing them you're ready to put it into action, help them reach their goals.
Exactly. You become a problem solver, someone they can trust to take initiative.
It's like you're saying, I'm not here to waste your time. I'm here to make things happen.
Yep. And who wouldn't want someone like that on their team?
For sure. But speaking of recognizing value, it reminds me of something else DarrenDaily talked about. This whole idea of how we see the people we're closest to.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, it's like sometimes those are the people we least expect great things from.
Yeah.
He called it the law of familiarity.
Ah, right. The law of familiarity.
It's like we put people we know well into these boxes in our minds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Like, oh, I know them. I've got them figured out.
Exactly. And then we kind of stop really listening to them.
Yeah.
Stop expecting them to surprise us with their ideas.
We take them for granted, basically. It's like familiarity breeds, well, maybe not contempt, but definitely a dulling of our appreciation for what they bring to the table, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because Darren Daily used that story of Jesus, how he had to leave Nazareth to really be heard.
Oh, yeah, right.
Can you imagine that? Even Jesus had to deal with this law of familiarity thing.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. It really shows you how powerful that outsider perspective can be. We're just wired to give more weight to ideas from someone new or different, even if the message itself isn't anything revolutionary.
It's so true. I've totally been guilty of that myself. My best friend gives the best financial advice. Seriously, he should write a book. Do I listen to him?
What? No.
No. I'm too busy scrolling through financial advice, TikToks from who knows who. I need that expert label from a stranger to take it seriously.
Oh.
It's crazy.
That's hilarious, but I get it. It's a real thing. But it makes you think about how we value the gifts and talents of those around us. And hey, speaking of undervalued gifts, Darren Daily also talked about the parable of the talents, right? I feel like that ties in here.
Oh, yeah. You mean the one where the buries his talent in the ground because he's scared instead of investing it or something?
That's the one. It always makes me think, because it's not just about actual talents like singing or painting. It's about anything we've been given: skills, knowledge, kindness, even just our time and attention. It's about recognizing those gifts, no matter how small we might think they are, and using them to make a difference.
Which, now that you mention it, reminds me of that chain of love story Darren Daily told about this stranded motorist and the tired waitress. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
It's a perfect example of how those little acts of generosity, they can snowball into something much bigger. It's like one person's kindness creates this ripple effect that goes way beyond that first act.
It all comes back to connection, doesn't it? We're all more interconnected than we realize. And our actions, no matter how small, they really can make a difference. And it all ties back to what we were saying at the beginning about communication being a two-way street, even when we aren't the one speaking.
Totally. So to wrap this up for everyone listening, imagine if we really took all this to heart. The power of truly listening, really seeing the value in the people we know, and then actually using our own skills and talents, our own gifts to make a difference. How would that change how we interact with each other, our relationships, how we see the world? It's pretty powerful stuff when you think about it.
Absolutely. Something to think about.
For sure. And hey, while you're thinking about it, why not pick one thing, one little tactic from this deep dive and try it out this week? Let us know how it goes.
That wraps up today's episode of Darren Daily On Demand. We hope this special AI-powered recap gave you some valuable insights. If you're ready to continue leveling up and becoming better every day, make sure you join Darren Hardy and thousands of high achievers over on Darren Daily. Visit DarrenDaily.com/join to get free daily mentoring that will keep you focused and moving forward. Thanks for listening.